Alright guys, and welcome to my NFL Weekly show. This is not much of a big deal. What I'm basically going to do is have, at the end of every single week, I'm going to talk about the NFL season, talk about my bets, see how I did, and we're basically just going to have some fun. We're going to have my power rankings, show where I was right, where I was wrong, and do a couple fun things like that. This is not in replace of BnA Sports Talk. I'm going to start those back up very soon, but let's just start off with this, and let's start off with my power rankings, and I'll put them on the screen so you guys can see them. I'm not going to mention every single team, but I'm going to mention some teams that are interesting. So I have the Chiefs at number 1. The Chiefs are the best team, I think. They have a little bit of weakness defense. The defense has been looking a little bit better, especially against the Raiders. I'm not too sure how good the Raiders are going to be offensively this year, but, Derek Carr looked pretty good against the Broncos, who have a pretty stout defense. So there's that. The Patriots, I think you have to put them at number 2. But I think that AB thing, it may have been a little bit of a stretch, kind of like a Randy Moss thing. When the Patriots, when everyone's just like, oh, it's going to be too easy for them, usually they don't win it all. I mean, they went through that 10-year period without winning it all, It's hard to win in the NFL. Things bounce a certain way, but with like baseball and stuff, usually the best team ends up winning. Number 3, I have the Cowboys. I was really skeptical about Kellen Moore. It looks like he's going to work out, and Dak Prescott is playing for his contract now. He's going to get paid, and all these players now are paid, and all that's left to do is them winning. They're doubted. Everyone's really counting them out. I think they're really going to have the underdog feeling. So there's that. Next team, I have the Packers. I think they're a little bit too high on this list, but I'm going on basically like Super Bowl odds, where it have their Super Bowl odds right now, and I think the Packers have to be at least top 5. You have a stout defense. Aaron Rodgers is playing a little bit worse, but I think when the playoffs come, he's going to start playing a little bit better. The defense have been figuring them out. They've only had like a couple of successful drives so far this season, but they have played the Bears and the Vikings. We'll see. I like how this relationship is developing. Next, I have the Ravens. I just think as long as Lamar can hold on to the ball and just make plays and stuff like that, as long as he doesn't throw the games away, they have a great offensive line, they have a great run game, and I think it could work. And their defense has looked pretty sharp, but they played 2 pretty bad defenses so far. So I'm cautiously optimistic about the Ravens. I'm going to put these teams higher than I would like to have them, so they can fall higher. I was really low on these teams in the beginning, and I'm actually going to have next to them how far or high they fell from my previous ranking. Next, I have to respect the Rams. They're 8-1 at home in their last 9 games. Doesn't feel like they have that much of a home field advantage, but they're run really well. I think that their offensive line through the season, it's going to be a liability for them. I think their defense is going to be a liability, but they beat the Panthers and they beat the Saints, and they looked really good doing it, so I have to respect them. And let's move down to the list because I have the Seahawks. I think that Russell Wilson is playing really well, and he'll start playing well. Even better when the season progresses. This is a slow-building team. This is the Patriots of the NFC. As much as people don't like that stigma, they're the Patriots of blank. We're the Patriots of this. Odell said we're the Patriots. We're trying to be like the Patriots. That name is thrown around a lot, but I think the Seahawks are a really good team. I'm really turning around on how they're run as an organization. Number 10, I have to put the Bears. I have to put them top 10 because of their defense, and that's going to keep them in games. As long as Mitch Trubisky knows his role, he's going to get better as the year goes on. I think that this relationship is going to get better. So there's the rest of my list. I'd really draw the Super Bowl bubble at probably the Vikings. I don't think the Vikings can win it. I don't think the Browns can win it. I think the Browns have a really have a really low ceiling, but I think they can win a playoff game. I think they can. Once they get in, they can win a playoff game. I like their demeanor now. Odell shaved his hair. There's a lot of focus, and I think down the stretch you're going to gain some momentum and potentially win a playoff game. The Bills have been looking way better. I told you guys, either the Jets or the Bills is going to break off. I said one of these teams is going to suck, and the other team is going to be great. It looks like the Bills are great. Their defense maintained from last year. They're having a lot, they have a decent amount of turnovers. They're winning without turnovers. They're doing really well so far this season. And I probably would tweak, you can look at power rankings, you can tweak it all you want. You can go, oh, this team's better than this team. But this is the general consensus I have. The bottom is obviously the Buccaneers and the Jets. Sam Darnold is aiming a Week 5 return. We'll see about that. I think the Jets are just a huge mess. Just I'm going to talk about this later in a different video, but just imagine if we picked Sam Darnold, he's getting injured. They didn't set him up for success. We're setting Daniel Jones up for success, but I'll mention that in a different video. The Bengals, They looked horrible against the 49ers. People were like, oh, they played the Seahawks close. Everyone plays the Seahawks close in the first couple weeks. It's just the way it is. And there's a lot of false hope in the Bengals. Andy Dalton's a good quarterback. He just doesn't have a lot of weapons. Boyd is looking better. John Ross is looking a little bit better. I guess Tyler Eifert is healthy, but this offensive line is weak. Andy Dalton's going to be running around, and this team is going to go through a lot of growing pains. And I have some other notes I have on this list. I'm jumping off the Falcons bandwagon a little bit because their offensive line is really concerning me. I really don't like the way that's formed. It's really young. They already lost Caleb McGarry. They lost him pretty early, and that's a huge concern because you need unity in this offensive line. You need them to work together. But as long as they can win games, as long as they get some lucky bounces like they didn't get last year, as long as they stay healthy, it's fine. This is the age of attrition. This is the war of attrition. It's the war of attrition, so don't give up now. If you're 0-2, even the Jaguars, where do I have them on this list? I forgot where I put them. I have them at 24. They can easily, with Gardner Minshew, rattle off if they're 5-6 or 5-5 when Nick Foles comes back. You're 9-7. You make the playoffs. It's the war of attrition. You never know who's going to go down next. You never know. Joe Flacco goes down. Then all of a sudden you have one more wild card spot going up. It's Baker Mayfield goes down. Tom Brady goes down. You never know who's going to go down. That's why you got to fight every single week. The Steelers, I think that they're going to be fine with Mason Rudolph. I think they're going to be an 8-8 team. They're a winning franchise. That's what they are. They haven't been under 500 for 15 years. You think it's going to be this year? I don't know. I really don't. It looks like they want to win. They're setting a tone for this franchise. Like, we want to win. They're going to try to aim for a wild card spot because let's look around the Colts, Texans. No team really scares them. The Steelers are going to try to win, and they're going to try to bring Ben Roethlisberger back next season and be better. And why not establish a winning culture this year? And then the Lions haven't really looked as good as I wanted them to. Matt Stafford's still throwing a lot of picks. The defense isn't as great as I thought it'd be. But, yeah, I think the Lions have a chance for the wild card spot still. I think that they still will. I think they'll get a 6th wild card spot. But that one tie, you pretty much got to treat it like a loss. Even if you go 9-5-1 or 9-6-1, team 10-6 is going to make it, not you. So, there's that. I think you got to treat that as a loss. If they would have won that game, that would have been so great. I think that's going to come to bite them the rest of the season. But, yeah, that's a quick power ranking. And let's move on to the next segment of the video with my takeaways. Let's look at my bets of the week. I had a parlay play. I had 5 bets. And if you look at it, all of them are right besides one. And that's because the Broncos decided to go for a 2-point conversion at the end of the game, and they got it. And the Bears came down the field, and even though they won, they did not cover the spread. It's a bad beat. I would have gotten $27 off of it, and it would have been great. I would have cashed in on so many of my other bets, but this gives me confidence now. I'm only going to use $1 to $2 every single week, and this gives me confidence that I know what I'm talking about. I had the Lions winning. I said, the 49ers, the odds that they don't win, that's crazy. I thought the Bengals were really overrated just from their performance. Week 1 hype, it's real. These teams are preparing for a while, and sometimes you just match up to a team a little bit better, and you're just coming in with a little bit of an advantage, and teams don't see that. So I saw that in that game. I also had the Cleveland Browns winning. I had them at 2.5 before Sam Darnold had mono. It's kind of lucky, but I still probably would have bet them 6.5 because I looked at this offense. I'm like, how are they going to score points? And I'm like, the Browns are really going to score like 20, And, so I did pretty well in my bets. This week I'll keep you updated with my bets and what I have later in the week when I do my prediction show on Saturday. But, yeah, overall, pretty successful this week. We went 4 for 5. Didn't win the parlay play. I'm not sure if we're going to do a parlay play next week. I may just do individual and then parlay, but we'll see about that. I don't even know how to begin this, so let's just talk about the Saints. Wow. Drew Brees is injured for 6 weeks. He's going to be out, and they're playing some really good teams. And I want to tell you about Teddy Bridgewater and what I've thought about him since the beginning. I remember in 2014, he won the Rookie of the Year with some pretty lame stats compared to Odell Beckham Jr., and I was pissed. I was really pissed, and ever since then, I hated Teddy Bridgewater. I don't root for the guy to get injured. I don't root for his knee to blow up, but I always thought he was an overrated player. There were rumors about the Giants maybe picking him up as like an option. I was like, no way, I do not want Teddy Bridgewater. I just don't. He's going to explode any time now. He's He's not accurate. He's a pretty good leader. I don't really hate him that way, but I just never really liked Teddy Bridgewater. It's not kind of his skin color. I don't know why I had to mention that, but I feel like people are like, oh, he's black. You know? But here's what they're going to do without Brees. And I hope you guys are listening. And I'll tell you how I feel about the rest of the season. Going in, I said that they go about 9-7. I said Drew Brees just looks old. You know, the defense or the offense wasn't the same after that Cowboys game. And yeah, you're expecting just them to blow up and beat the Rams last year in the NFC Championship. They almost lost to the Eagles if it wasn't for a lucky tip pass. Well, not tipped. It went through Nelson Aguilar's hand. They would have lost that game. And yeah, you're just expecting this team to be great, but here's what they're going to do. They're at Seattle. That's a loss. They play the Cowboys. That's a loss. They play the Bucks. I'll probably give them the win. Then they're at the Jags. That's a loss. Gardner Minshew looks good. This defense has always been suspect. Teddy Bridgewater versus that defense, yeah, good luck with that. That's a loss. The Bears, at the Bears, that's a loss. You're playing in the cold weather at that point. That's a loss against the Bears. Then you're going to lose against the Cardinals. Kyler Murray's going to light this team up on defense. They're suspect on defense. And you think that Teddy Bridgewater can do anything against this Arizona pass rush? They're going to give him fits. This offensive line isn't good. And, you know, Kyler Murray's going to tear up the secondary of the Cardinals. And they're going to go into the bye 2-6. That's right. And then they're going to get Drew Brees back. They play the Falcons. I think that's a loss. They play Tampa and Carolina. I think you have 2 wins there. And then pretty much your season's lost at that point. You play at the Falcons. I think the Falcons have to win that game. You beat a dead horse. And they're going to be like, oh, the division is on the line here. The Falcons are probably going to be, I would say 6-5 at this point. This is going to be for the division, and the Atlanta Falcons take it. Then they can just cruise down the stretch. The 49ers, they'll probably win that game. I think that Drew Brees has the experience to take on a secondary like this, and they'll have a fluke win somewhere in here. Then they play the Colts, and then at the Titans, they lose both those games, and they beat Carolina. And that was a really quick overview. That was really quick. I don't feel like dissecting each game because each game is going to be different. They're going to be different scenarios, but I have this team going 6-10 or 7-9 total. I don't have this team winning a lot of games. I think they blow it all up. Drew Brees is out. Sean Payton is going to pick his quarterback of the future. I think they end up with a top 7 pick. They may get lucky this year. And they have a really good team. On paper, they have a really good team. And next year, it's going to be great. Drew Brees, this is his last year. He's retiring. This is it. He has all these records now. You know, he kissed all his kids. He kissed the babies in the forehead. And this is it for him. This is the end of Drew Brees as we know it. Sorry. I've said this for a while. You know, Drew Brees has been great. You know, he's going to have some flashes. Like he had against the Texans, he's a game manager. He's great. He's not going to forget about that. All of a sudden, you're not going to forget. But your skills just decline. It is what it is. We see Tom Brady now. A couple of times you see his ball wobble a little bit. It's like, okay, what was that? And then the next story is like he throws a dart. It's like, okay, he's back. But Drew Brees, he's 40. He just turned 40. He's going to be 41 after this season in January. He's too old. He's going to retire, go with his kids. He's not going to ride off into the sunset. It sucks for Drew Brees. But look at all these quarterbacks gone. Eli, Big Ben, Drew Brees. A lot of them are just all of a sudden gone. And a bunch of people are like, you know, in the beginning of the season, look at this quarterback play. It's great. Not a lot of teams are going to need a quarterback in the draft. And I said at the time, you know what? There are going to be a lot of injuries. We don't know. We could be like the Jets that Sam Darnold ends up having a career-ending injury, and we just don't know. So, yeah, there's that. And football is so unpredictable. Like, we didn't expect the Giants to draft a quarterback. Like last year, we didn't expect Arizona to be drafting another quarterback number 1 overall. We just didn't expect it. We didn't. And you would have ruled out Arizona for picking a quarterback in the first round. I think that, one last point, the Saints don't do a lot of traveling, but not a lot of teams do traveling anymore. You had, you know, the 49ers not travel a lot. I think the Seahawks are not, or the Rams are planning on doing something where they stay in practice at a high school because they don't want to travel a lot. But the Saints are going to have that advantage. They don't really travel around the country a lot, which I think will help them in their record a little bit. So maybe 7-9. I'll bump them up 7-9. But yeah, here's the next story I want to talk about. The problems in Chicago. What's going on there? And I think it can be dissected into probably 3 or 4 main problems. Number 1, they only have 1 turnover in 2019 so far. And last year, they led the league, and we were expecting a regression. But only 1 turnover in 2019. You need to give the offense extra times to get the ball. You need to get the ball back in there on the 20, kick a field goal or something. You need to be better at that. The red zone is fine-ish. I would rather Mitch Trubisky not throw it around a lot and take a lot of risks, but that's fine. So, yeah, that's a problem with Chicago. They haven't had a lot of turnovers this year. And they need to start getting turnovers. You know, you can't have 1 turnover in 2 games. You need at least 3 or 4, like some other teams. And I think that might be just like they haven't played enough games to start racking up turnovers. But come on, let's get the ball out. You played against Aaron Rodgers. You played against kind of conservative Joe Flacco. But, when you start playing these teams like the 49ers, I think they play, you got to get these turnovers. You got to give your offense extra possessions. Number 2, Mitch Trubisky is still making rookie mistakes. You got to put some of it on Mitch Trubisky. Matt Nagy doesn't trust him, and that's kind of a compounding issue where Matt Nagy's not trusting him. He's not giving Mitch Trubisky his full potential. He's kind of babying him still. And they may have to look, I've heard rumors about them trying to get the Giants. I don't think you do that. I think you stick with Trubisky, and if he's a quarterback, great, but if he's not, you draft another guy. I think that's what you do. You don't bring in a veteran guy. Matt Nagy doesn't really, like, some simple reads he's just missing. He's like Kirk Cousins. But the problem is, Kirk Cousins, they're paying him a lot of money, and Trubisky, they don't have to pay him anything. They don't have to pay him anything when he's gone. They only pay him like $8 million a year. When he's eligible to get paid money, they're not going to pay him. And Nagy is a little bit suspect. People have been saying like he may not be the coach that we all think he is. He may not be the genius. I don't really know the ins and outs in football that much. I've been trying to get a little bit better, but there's that. And 4, there's a lack of a run game. They're 20th in the league in running. They're not really using Tariq Cohen that well, and you need to establish the run game. That's what the Vikings are doing. And their offensive line hasn't been great this year, but you have to establish the run game. The loss of Jordan Howard I thought wouldn't be bad because I thought he wasn't really a scheme fit. But you need a power back, I guess, with this team. T. Crone's kind of small. You need a guy who just ground and pounded. David Montgomery, I guess, is all right, but he's a rookie. So, this team needs to be able to get yards on rundowns. They need to be able to get 3rd and 2. You can't have Mitch Trubisky throwing on 3rd and 2. You can't have that. You can't have them knowing he's going to throw. You have to have that threat of a rush, and I feel like that's going to help the balance out of this offense. We're going to talk more about the Vikings in a later video about how I think they really have a really low ceiling. And then finally, 3rd downs. Yeah, like I said, that was my last point. I read it. I'm like, oh shit, I kind of just mentioned that. I didn't realize. They have a really low 3rd down percentage. I think they're like 4th worst in the league. And that's where the money is made. You have to extend the drives. You have to get your defense off the field. And that's a key thing for Chicago. You can't have the defense be tired because then things start spiraling worse and worse. And so finally with that, we're going to mention my last story of the day, and that's Eli Manning and where he could go. And now there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people talking about it, and I've heard names like Pittsburgh thrown around. I've heard names like Jaguars thrown around. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are on my list, but the Jaguars aren't. That just doesn't make sense, guys. Come on. I know Jalen Ramsey is leaving because Tom Coughlin's kind of pushing him out, that type of thing, but I just don't see it with the Jaguars. They just signed a 4-year contract to Nick Foles, paying him $50 million. Come on. And Gardner Minshew looks good. That's the reason why I don't have him. So let's start off with my qualifications on this list. So first of all, they have to be a contender. I think he's not going to want to go to a team that's, they're building, they're rebuilding, and it's going to be great. For the likelihood. There's some teams on this list aren't contenders, but they have pluses in other categories. Number 2, they have to have a great offensive line to protect. Eli Manning, Eli Manning has a low ceiling, but he can't be running around. If he's running around all the time, he's really not going to be good. Next, they have to have a top 15 defense for a lot of things. The Giants have had a bad defense, and you saw the one year they had a top 5 defense, they won 11-5. They won a lot of close games. The ball went their way, but they won a lot of close games, and they ended up being really successful, and they had just a reputable defense. A defense that won't let up one more touchdown than you do. A defense that will have bad games, but overall is going to be consistent. So they're going to have to have a top 15 defense. Hopefully a non-rival like the Jets, the Cowboys, the Redskins. They're not going to trim to the Redskins. Come on. The Eagles, even though they may have a Carson Wentz problem, they're not going to do that. The Patriots, that type of thing. We're not going to trade them to a team that we're right next to. That's obvious. And then finally, solid front office / relationships. And those are the 5 categories that I really took into making my list. So let's start off with number 5 because it's the Broncos. So some pros of this. Drew Lock is a project, and it's going to take him years and years and years to succeed. I think we saw that in the preseason. So Joe Flacco hasn't been playing great. That's kind of a negative because Joe Flacco is playing. He's on the team. But they're not really committed to him. And they may see like, oh, Eli Manning's just a better player. Let's just pick him. They're not really committed to Joe Flacco. He hasn't really looked good in the first 2 weeks. They're 0-2. They may be like, oh, Eli Manning. Yeah, why not? You had Peyton. He can work some magic with this team. Why not? They have an offensive line, and their defense is good. Their defense is solid. Bradley Chubb, they haven't been playing. They haven't played great so far. They're not the no-fly zone anymore. But you have that home field advantage that Eli Manning can work with. Eli Manning and Joe Flacco are similar quarterbacks. You can say, you know what, we'll just stick to Eli Manning. It won't take him that long to learn a playbook. Eli Manning's smart. You have that defensive coach in Vic Fangio, and I think he can learn right away. So number 4, I have Tampa. They're not a contender right now, but you could look at this division and say, well, the Falcons aren't great. The Panthers aren't great. The Saints, I just said they'll go 6-10. If Winston starts throwing 5 interceptions a game again, they just signed their offensive lineman to an insane deal with like $16 million a year. You have a decent defense with Ndamukong Suh. You have Vernon Hardgrave. You have Vita Vea. You have Jason Pierre-Paul. Reunite them. And yeah, you have a great coach, great front office, team that doesn't really win a lot. Like I said, the whole contention thing, but I think it could be a good possibility, especially if Jameis Winston gets hurt or something happens. I think that they may be looking to the draft. Let's be realistic, but you never know. Like, who would have thought Gardner Minshew would be playing? Let's just throw out ideas. Just 5 weeks ago, if you said half the things that are happening now, he's like, Ben Roethlisberger's be out, and Mason Rudolph's going to be starting quarterback. You would have said that was crazy. So, next, number 3, the Titans. They have Ryan Tannehill. They have Marcus Mariota. But, they may want to be like, well, Eli Manning's available. We have a top 15 offensive line, top 15 defense. And Marcus Mariota may be like, okay, we're not cutting it. He's a little bit fragile. With Derrick Henry, they can work with that run game. They don't have great weapons. They do have, I forget his name. I'm going to forget his name now. But he was going to go to the Patriots, but he didn't. But they have a decent wide receiver core. They have a really good secondary with Bayard, with Malcolm Butler. And they have a pretty good pass rush. And especially with this division, again, like the NFC South, the AFC South and the NFC South, you could contend. You can contend with the Titans, and Eli Manning can make some magic with this team, especially with the Bill Belichickian coach. Stay, do your job. Don't try to overperform. That type of mentality. So number 3 is the Titans. Number 2, I have the Steelers. I really didn't want to include them on this list, but there aren't too many teams, to be quite honest with you, with realistic. I mean, if Russell Wilson goes down tomorrow, I guess Paxton Lynch. I think they got rid of, so Geno Smith would be their quarterback. You never know with these things, but as it stands right now, the Steelers are a really high possibility because they have the relationship with the Maras. They're committed to Minkah Fitzpatrick. Eli Manning wants to play for at least this year. He didn't say about years and years, but this may be his last year. The Bills are committed to Big Ben for another 2 years, $34 million a year, so he's going to look to, he already said he's going to look to live out that contract. They are contenders. I had them in the Super Bowl this year. I had the Steelers in the Super Bowl, and, the Ravens and the Browns are a little bit suspect. So, Mason Rudolph riles off a couple wins. They see, like, maybe he gets hurt or something happens, and the Giants, they have a great deal. You haven't been hearing it, but I've been coughing a lot. So let's just end the video, because number 1, I would have talked about the Steelers for a lot and stalled it a lot, but let's mention number 1 because it's the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins, they gave him a guaranteed deal, but I think they could just jump off it. I think they could just swallow the money. They don't have a lot of cap space to spend, but just think about it. They're gonna have to get rid of this Kirk Cousins deal, and they're looking to contend now. You have Danielle Hunter on this defense with Anthony Barr, with a bunch of pass rushers, a decent secondary with Xavier Rhodes. And Kirk Cousins, he has a really low ceiling. He passed for 10 yards. It's great when they win, but when they lose, it's like Kirk Cousins throws the game away. Eli Manning won't do that. He learned how to not do that. You have a really good running back with Dalvin Cook. The offensive line is better. You're in a division that can compete. You play in a dome. You have the coaches that respect you, with Gary Kubiak, who I think was the coach for the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl. But yeah, it can work. I think the Minnesota Vikings are a great contender for the Eli Manning. And yeah, that's my segment for the top stories of the week. I'm going to include this in the top stories of my week. I was thinking about doing a different BnA, but hope you guys enjoyed this segment or this episode of Weekly NFL. These are my top 3 storylines of the week again. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you next week for the next segment. I'll see you in my next video, which will be probably tomorrow, and it's going to be a re-upload video, and you guys will see it then, but hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, guys.